The Racing Post Bloodstock Postcast is sponsored by Racing FX, the UK's leading money services provider to the equine industry.
Hello, welcome to a Racing Post Bloodstock Cheltenham Postcast. I'm Martin Stevens from the Bloodstock desk. I've got my colleague James Thomas here, and we have a very special guest in the studio today. He was a promising jockey in the early 2000s. Fair to say he's achieved an awful lot more in his new career as a Bloodstock agent. He's bought Cheltenham winners Brindisi Breeze, Dodging Bullets, Present View, Next Sensation, Qualando, Ibis de Reur, a Grand National winner in One for Arthur, and Cheltenham prospects this year in Native River and Black Corton, of course. It's Tom Malone. Tom, you must be very excited for Cheltenham with all those prospects lined up for you.
Yeah, sure. Look, it's an exciting time of year, but it's a nervous time of year as well, because your whole year hinges on 4 days. It shouldn't, but it does.
Yeah.
And every day that goes by now, we get very nervous, because I've already had 2 big chances fall by the wayside. Cracking Smart of Gordon Elliott's, who had a big chance in the Albert Bartlett, and this morning Hunter's Call has been called out of the county. Yeah. Both had seriously good chances, and there's 2 less now to go to war with, but we've still got a strong hand. Probably going to have about 25-30 runners. Realistically, 7 or 8 of them with live chances. Yeah,
good. And you were you rode at Cheltenham once, didn't you? Was your best result on Howardeath, was it?
Howardeath, yeah. Funny enough, if I could have ridden at all, I'd have beaten Sporazine that day. He was, I'll never forget, it was county hurdle, and I jumped the last, either 13th or 15th, and I got beat a half a length by Sporazine, and he was a 7-1 joint favourite that day. He was the banker to get people out. 7-1 he was. And this thing just came up the straight like a razzie. So, but that's it, that's life. That's why I was a £7 claimer at the time. Oh, well.
And what was your finest moment? Was it quick when you mugged off all the other jockeys there?
Well, it wasn't a case of mugging off. I'll tell you, not many people have told that story too, but the boss had said to me, just jump out, go a good gallop. We had 5 in the race. We had Ruby riding Rose Mauve, I think it was, she was favourite.
This was for Martin Pipe, wasn't
Martin Pipe, yeah. And the one I was riding had been a good juvenile, probably lost his way a little, but his mark had settled, and he was 50-1. And the 3 mile start at Cheltenham is in the back straight, as you know, so you run downhill. And
this was a per temps qualifier, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they allowed me get a flyer, but I only flew down across 3 hurdles and then went, whoa, and rode a race from there. Yeah. And I'll never forget getting up to the top of the hill. Because they'd not come to me, I actually thought I'd gone the wrong course. I actually looked around thinking, and then I thought, there's a rail the whole way around, you can't go wrong, it's simple. Anyways, it was one of them good days, and the owners who had owned Bonanza Boy back in the days, they're very good friends of the Pipe family, so we had a right good party that night.
Not popular in the weighing room afterwards after doing that some way.
Listen, a winner's a winner. Yeah. Cheer him in.
So how did it go then? How did you go from being a jockey to becoming an agent?
Towards the end, like as a conditional, you have your claim, and your claim is used for your 7, your 5, your 3. But towards the end of my 3, I was a limited jockey. I had some great days, and I got the job done. But I knew that it wasn't the be-all and end-all for me, because I didn't have that extra ability to be a top 10 rider. Yeah. So at the end, I enjoyed it. I don't know how it actually happened. I think the first horse I rode that I bought was a little horse called Monash Lad. I bought him off of Karen George at the time for 1,500 quid. And I sold him to Gary Dole down in Somerset, who had him with Liam Corcoran in Knightsbridge, Kingsbridge. And we ended up pulling a good old touch with him at Sedgefield. We went the whole way up, stayed the night before, and the owner, he must have got about 40 grand off him that day, because I remember riding him in a cellar at Leicester and thinking, he gave me enough of a feel for a mile and a half to say that wound up or change of scenery and all that malarkey, that you'd win off your mark. I think he was rated 82, so he ended up being a 100 horse, which isn't great, but you've £18 to play with, and that's the key. And then I thought, ooh, and then I went home to Ireland and I bought the second horse I ever bought was a horse called Milton the BF, and Arthur Moore had him, and he'd ran him in a hurdle and a couple of chases in the spring of a 5-year-old, but obviously around Ireland it was ordinary, and chucked him out for summer's grass, came back in and went pint of pint with him, and he won 2 pint of pints. So I switched on to that because I'm big into the pint of pints, went back and thought, well, you could be handicapped. So I went and got a mark for him, and he had a mark of 82. Yeah. And he'd gone and won 2 pint of pints, and we bought him for 20 grand. And I thought to myself, wow, there's fun that he had with you. And he's won 9 races in the end, and that's how I got in. I'll never forget, it was a Uttoxeter riding one day, and I seen Nick Schutz, and I stopped him. He didn't know who I was from Adam, and I really didn't know who he was, but I said, I've got a horse you should buy. And he says, who are you? Anyway, in the morning he said, yes, I'll have him, and that's how it all started.
So you had to be a bit ballsy along the way then too. Yeah.
We'll get to them parts.
So, but now you're, fair to say, in the very top ranks of the leading agents in Britain and Ireland, especially with your National Hunt purchases. I think James has got some questions about the mechanics of actually what you do.
Well, as we were talking about earlier, obviously people see agents at the sales spending lots of money on exciting horses, but what would your day-to-day kind of activities be? Because obviously, there isn't a sale every day of the week.
No, but I think because of the way that the industry has changed, the boutique sales have now become the new thing. And where it used to be Doncaster and May, so every pointer went there, or they were sold privately at home. Whereas it's completely different now. So you have two powerhouses in, it's Tattersall's now with Brightwell's, and Goffs UK, which was Doncaster, are fighting against each other to get the horses. So they became having maybe 3 or 4 boutique sales each themselves nearly a year. So every 10 or 12 days it became that there was a sale on. The year, I'll never forget it, because the year Mackay won the National on Don't Push It, I went home that year and I had about 100 horses to see, because Cheltenham were having their biggest sale, and I think I rode about 55 of them. I never forget it. I sat in the bath because I'd seized up. In 4 days I'd ridden that many horses and galloping around the country to get to see them. And I remember getting to a little place, I think it's in Kildare, called Prosperous, and watched Mackay win and Don't Push It in a little betting office. Couldn't fit 10 people in there. And I'll always remember Don't Push It from that. But I'd been home. Then the boutique sales started to get more and more. So I couldn't really go home and keep riding them.
No.
Because the catalogue wasn't it wasn't full of horses. And then there'd be 5 or 10 more wildcards at the weekend. So I'd ridden that many, couldn't ride them. Well, why make the judgment? So it just got more difficult. And then I sat back and I thought, most of the good horses I'd bought, I wasn't able to get to sit on them at the end of it. It was a lovely way to start off. It gave me a big advantage, and it was a great way to do it, and I'd never change it.
So what's the difference now then? Because Tattersall's Island got a Cheltenham sale next week during the festival. You have the catalogue. What
there's 9 lots in it already. I went through them all yesterday. There's 7 meetings in Ireland this weekend, pointing. So they're going to be hoping for fireworks this weekend to try and find that big money, big star horse. But yeah, it's just basically hope you're lucky and keep trying to find the right horse.
And obviously you'd be very keen on kind of getting around to all the yards and farms and sort of following these horses through right from a very young stage, even before they've run. Or?
Like people say, what do you do when it's not off? Well, most of January and February are quiet months in the industry anyway. So I spend probably 10 or 11, 12 days in Ireland going round to all of the stables that are going to have 4-year-old maiden pointers. So I've already got a picture of them. I've written something down about them. I have their pedigrees. I've analysed every bit of that, especially the ones I like. And France, the same. I do the same thing in France. So when some of them win on a Sunday afternoon, it's not a case of me getting on a plane Monday or Tuesday to see if I like them. I already know I can make a decision like that. As long as I have myself in order and I know a nice horse. I think I've built up a reputation that most people, they know that it's serious when I start talking to them about horse. It's a serious business now. So you end up getting into a better horse and advised better as well.
So I mean, say you have a horse who wins over 1.5 miles on the flat in France. As an agent, what's your kind of window of opportunity to get in and get that horse bought privately? Because obviously it's getting more and more competitive.
Of course it is, but that whole thing has changed now as well, and I'm seeing it in France. For the last 2 years, I've seen the stock in France be less. They're not as nice as they were 4 or 5 years ago when I started.
Okay.
And what's changed that is that Ireland have been so good with the French horses, with Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott and Paul Nicholls with in England, is that the good Irish pinhookers have gone and absolutely scavenged all of the nice AQPS foals, yearlings, 2-year-olds. It has to have an effect on the crops left in France.
Sure.
So I went to the Derby sale last year, and through no fault, it was known, I bought 11 horses at the Derby sale. 8 of them were French breds. Now that I didn't set out to buy 8 French breds. I ended up buying a horse that I would have bought And if 8 of them are already in the Derby sale, they're not in France. And they're the horses I'd have seen that I would have went, wow, I have to buy you after winning. Well, now what's left? Like, the French look upon things differently. They don't really, I'm not saying they don't care about the model, but it's less effective. It's less of a big thing to them.
Right.
They're all about the pedigree. Whereas in Ireland, it's all about the big, beautiful, modelled by a nice sire. They'll take chances on horses. And it's been amazing to see the difference between the way the French look at things and the way the Irish look at things. But they do say many roads lead to Rome. You still get there. So it's been an interesting path to get there, let me tell you.
Can you talk us through a few case studies of successful horses you've bought and how the deal came about? So a good starting point would be Dodging Bullets.
Yeah, Dodging Bullets he'd ran about 8 or 9 times on the flat. Andrew Oliver had him in the north of Ireland. And Andrew at the time all of his horses were being campaigned as 7 furlong milers because it was open to Hong Kong.
Yes.
So if he made them a miler, they'd come and he'd get plenty of money. But Dodging Bullets was being placed over 7 in a mile and just hadn't got that little kick. And the minute he stepped him up to a mile at Galway, he won. And then he went to Sligo over 1.25 miles on heavy ground. And that day, he's just jumped off the page at me. I thought, wow, I didn't know it at the time how good De Bowie was going to be. And I don't think we'll see too many jumpers by De Bowie now because of the way he's gone. But at the time, he looked awesome that day. He looked like he'd galloped through a wall for you. And funnily enough, the horse he beat was also by De Bowie. It was a horse called Hissabet, who's Dermot Wells, who ended up being a 145 horse anyway. So when I went to see the horse, he had these little things. He towed out a little bit dropped of a pelvis and whatnot. But Buffy went and vetted him. She passed him. And, well, the rest is history.
So although you're best known at the moment for making these big money deals at the big National Hunt sales, are you still watching the flat racing? And
oh, God, yeah. I mean, listen, you can be pigeonholed sometimes. I don't mind. I buy every horse. Because there's an angle and a market for every horse. I bought Irving out of Germany for no money. And I always say it's not about what they cost. It's what you have to pay for them. I mean, it's if I could find a horse next week that is under the radar and no one knows about him, which is brilliant. I don't have to spend fortunes on a horse. It's no good. No horse is worth what some of them are making now, but you have to be in the middle of it. And if you want that horse on your team, you've got to buy him. And it's very simple. It's easy to say back, he wasn't worth that. That's okay, but someone else underbid him. There was a person there to say he was worth that. Do you know, and we all know that these horses are colossal money, but the whole thing has risen. Foals are 60 and 70 grand a foal now. Stores have risen. Everything has risen. So you've got to adjust yourself to run with that.
Well, we'll talk more about the market and the National Hunt point-to-point market after a break.
The Racing Post Bloodstock Postcast is sponsored by Racing FX, the UK's leading money services provider to the equine industry. Manage all your multi-currency needs in one cash manager account and spend anywhere in the world using the Racing FX multi-currency card sponsored by MasterCard. Payments to all service providers in the industry, at home or abroad, are quick and easy to manage via our unique equine network.
So we were talking there about how extraordinary the National Hunt market is now, and how did it get like that? What's the...
Boutique sales. Basically, 20 years ago, most Irish pointers were bought weeks after they'd ran, whereas now you have so many of the big sales companies on the field on the day and tempting them to go to the sales where they might get 2 giants fighting against each other to buy a horse. When I say giants, I mean owners. You know, and that's where it becomes hard to fight against on a Sunday evening. But you know, you always think you're paying too much for them privately at home. You're not. Do you know what I mean? It's become apparent. Like there's been numerous 400 grand horses now, whereas 10 years ago the big price for a horse was 150 grand. It was like, wow, geez, you see what happened last Sunday? He made 150 grand. Well, I always say now, the worst order I have at the minute is 100 grand. It's the worst order to have because you're potentially buying a 50 grand horse. Whereas the division between them, it's just, it's every horse is worth 50 or 60 grand, 70 grand. or he's now making 250 grand.
Yeah.
And there's very little in the middle.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's just two people.
Yeah.
You know, and it is hard, but I sit down and I look back through all of the horses I've bought, all the ones I've missed, and they're all costing plenty of dough. I've done a lovely table the last 7 years. The average winner at Cheltenham has cost 115 grand.
Really?
The average
That's incredible,
winner.
isn't it? Yeah.
Now, some of them cost 500 grand, some of them cost
Yeah.
80 grand.
Yeah.
But the average winner
Yeah.
has cost 115 grand.
Yeah.
And I undervalued the ones that were bought privately. So that's at least what it's cost.
Yeah.
Because it's just when someone says to me, I want to buy a Cheltenham horse.
Yeah.
Right. I can put down statistically in front of them because everyone's got an opinion.
Yeah.
You can't really fight statistics.
Yeah.
Statistics are there for a reason.
There's something that a lot of people have talked on social media after some of these big Cheltenham sales about the difference between the value of a point-to-point winner who can be 300 grand upwards and the horse who isn't necessarily many lengths behind them in the point-to-point field, the runner-up. And they can make 50 grand or less. What's that all about?
Make 150 grand less.
Yeah.
That's down to opinion at the end of the day. Native River, who we'll talk about later, has a big chance in the Gold Cup. He was going to be placed in his point-to-point, and I swooped in and bought him after watching the video. They don't all have to cost fortunes. It's just that the winner is very obvious.
Yes.
The winner is very obvious. So I myself personally step back from that.
Yeah.
Because I have done enough research over 10 years of working in the industry to say that the best horse could be second or third. But it takes a bit of confidence and time to realise that. Now I've no problem. I bought one about 2 weeks ago for Brookhead Racing, Native Rivers people. He finished second in Kirkestown by Stowaway. I'd seen him unraced 10 days beforehand. Loved him.
Yeah.
Beautiful, raw, backward chaser. They love a chaser.
Yeah.
And he went and finished second. Didn't jump slick. Backward, raw horse. And the winner was going to the sales. So I swooped in and bought the second before the winner went to the sales because, as you see, if an owner thinks, well, he's worth X, Y, and Z, why don't we ask more for that? I was able to get him for less than 6 figures.
Yep.
And the winner made 195,000.
Yeah.
So to me, that was good value.
Yep.
And it didn't mind that he was second. You know, just because he's second, beaten 5 lengths, let's say, it's the first day of his life.
Yeah.
It's his first day at school. Some of them don't want to go to school.
No, exactly.
Some of them are frightened. Some of them are brave. It's
Yeah.
like children. It's like people. You know, you can relate a lot of it to people.
Yep. And when you're sort of looking for these pointers, how do you balance the sort of mix of stallion, pedigree, yard they're in, form of racing? You know, what would you put most emphasis on?
Well, after, like you have your books there, my books are the exact same from Ireland, and I have them all dated and where I've been. And the one thing I had noticed this year, one certain yard that showed me about 30 horses, 34-year-olds going to run in Pint of Pints. I wanted to buy 15 of them.
Yeah.
Now that to me was a standout. That was, wow, he's got a good bunch of horses. Because no other yard had a bunch like him.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, he's going to have a good year.
And that was?
Colin Bowe.
All right, of course,
Do you know what I mean? And he is having a good year and he's going to continue having a good year. And it was quite noticeable how many of them were nice. And I'll never forget looking at them because I was thinking, I can't want to buy that many. I never want to buy that many in one yard. And I just had to admit defeat that he had a beautiful bunch of horses. And they started winning. And Colin's a great guy because he wouldn't over-abuse them. He wouldn't over-gallop them. He'd get them fit in his own place and run them to see if they're fit, which the first one once he thought, right, the rest of them will fall into place now. And yeah, he's doing the job well.
Would one of those horses be Trevelyan's Corn?
Well, he was back in October or November, whenever it was. It was this year's stock that I'd seen, the Envoy Villain. Like I seen him in the yard, and he said, "My top 3 horses are him, and her." I went, "Ooh, her." So that was nice. Yeah. And then I actually went to Ballindennisk to see Danny Kerwin's brother, who's a horse called Appreciate It, by Jeremy, to run. And Envoy Ellen was in the race. There was 6 runners in the race, and 5 of them looked like good horses in the paddock. Had cost 50 grand a store. You're not talking about little 10 grand stores in against them. This was a proper race. And I was thinking, wow, this is going to be something special. They'll take a good horse to win this race. And They went a nice gallop for a maiden, especially a 4-year-old maiden, because what they can do is go whoa, whoa, whoa for a mile and a half and then just sprint, just quicken for a mile. They jumped off and they went a gallop. And Envoy Lane just sat there. They went a good gallop. 5 of them turned for home. They had 2 fences left to jump, and your man just went phew.
Yeah.
Now, to be able to do that against a classy bunch, to go away 10 lengths on the bridle, you have to be well above average. Well above average.
And he's been bought for Cheveley Park Stud. Is that the one?
Yes.
Yes,
and Violan. He's going to Gordon Elliott's.
Right.
Yeah. So
how does that come about, where Cheveley Park get involved? Is that you pitching it to them, or do they come to you?
Yeah. A friend of mine told me they were looking for a horse. We actually tried to buy Sam Spinner.
Oh, yeah.
I tried to buy Sam Spinner for them, and Mr. Chapman, who I've known for plenty of years, he decided against selling them. So then I knew that they'd at least listen to buying a horse. It's not the type they normally buy.
Yep.
They like buying a horse like Radishan this week. They like buying that type of horse, but that was a bit special that day.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to buy a Radishan, isn't it? Because most of the owners are happy to keep them. That's why they buy them.
Yes, exactly,
whereas that horse could be a Gold Cup horse one day. Like they all could be, but that performance was Gold Cup type.
Yeah. Can we ask you a few more of your recent pricier purchases? I'm going to start off with an agonising question, but it must be one you've thought about. How good do you think Flemons Hill, who you paid $480,000 for, and so sadly he died on the Gallops, was it?
Yeah.
How far do you think he would have gone?
So look, no one really knows, but he was well above average. You know, form now says that he blew away a field of acceptable horses.
Yep.
You know, the second Defi Bleu.
Yeah,
he's a decent horse, isn't he?
Yep.
And he blew him away.
Yeah.
And even Palmer's Hill is a 125-30 horse. He absolutely destroyed him.
Yeah.
And that form has just kept working out. And what I loved about him is he was 17 hands, that horse. He wasn't even 4 when he won his point to point.
Yeah.
He was a February 4-year-old. You know, he wasn't even 4.
Yeah.
Horse is not. Lots of people say to me, "Oh, he needs time." No, he doesn't. He's not much good. You know, good horses don't need time.
Yeah.
Good horses are just ready.
Yeah.
Finion's Oscar, he was just ready.
Yeah.
The best horses just win. They just do it. The ordinary horses you make excuses for, and he was just. That was a sad day because I thought to myself, yeah, you could be just the real deal now. Because he had everything. He had pedigree, he'd stallion, he'd size, he'd scope, he'd performance. He'd every box ticked.
On a brighter note, what about Chris's Dream, for example? He looks really exciting.
He was a funny one, that. I actually tried to buy him in Doncaster 17. January Doncaster 17. He'd won his point in Boulta on unraceable ground. What I loved about the video was it took him a furlong to pull it up.
Yeah.
Everything else pulled up 3 strides after the line. He was still cantering away up, and I thought, oh, you were not finished. And he made a noise at the sale.
Right.
I went there to buy him for Brocade Racing.
Yeah, because he didn't make a fortune in terms of point-to-point horses these days, did he?
No, but
obviously 175,000 is an awful lot of money, but
but that was the next time he came to a sale. I'm talking about back in January 17.
I beg your pardon.
He'd been to Doncaster, and he arrived there on the day, and he made a noise on the lunch. And I was livid because I wanted to buy him for Brocade Racing.
Right.
I said to them, "We've got to buy this horse. This is lovely."
Yeah.
I'd seen him at home. I'd seen him before he'd ever ran. I thought, this is the one. Let's have him. And I couldn't buy him then, could I? You know, he made a noise. That's the end of.
No.
So he went back racing, and I got him the second time round. He ended up at Cheltenham, and he doesn't look. See, it's amazing, isn't it? He'd won his maiden hurdle at Limerick, and yet he was deemed as exposed. Whereas a maiden pointer would make double what he was worth, might not get to his level. Hopefully they do, but he might not. Whereas that horse had proven form, and sure, what he done in Thurles last week, that was I think no one's talking about him in the Albert Bartlett, which is a shame really, because everyone's probably thinking, he destroyed them on heavy ground.
Yeah.
Mark Walsh couldn't believe how slow he thought he was going through the race.
Yeah.
And he had 130 horses beat a mile from home.
Yeah.
Like he had them caned.
Yeah, he's a real dark horse, isn't he?
Yeah, he's very much a big dark horse.
And briefly, just a few others. Vision de Flo, the Goffs Land Rover winner.
Yeah, well, he got beaten her for that silly price, odds on, and we were all disappointed. But in hindsight, he got beat by Paisley Park, was it? Who's a 145 horse now. So he actually did, but he needed his throat, his palate burned, and he's come back. He looked more impressive than the race probably suggests at Exeter, because the French horse, he bombed out.
Yep.
And I think you can do no more than what you've done.
Yeah.
But he's still an exciting horse.
And are you prepared to repeat what you told us about Danny Kirwan just before this podcast? The words you used about him?
Oh, he's a machine.
Yeah.
He's probably as good as I've bought.
Yeah.
I think I've worked for Paul for 7 years now, and I've never heard him talk about a horse like he talks to me about Danny Kirwan, which is unusual for Paul because I usually get, this is slow, he's not very good. So actually to hear him, his last 3 pieces of work, he was to run at Newbury in the listed bumper AC Milan one, and I'd lumped on him big each way because I thought this is a top class horse, but the ground got softer and softer. I thought we just shouldn't run him, and Paul decided, no, let's not run him. His last 3 pieces of work were with Politolog, who he worked not all over, but he galloped well beside him. He galloped with Modus and Monteveloir. They were his last 3 pieces of work. So at least 140 to 160 horse he'd been galloping beside, and he's going for a bumper. My God, I thought, well, I was very nervous now, Kempton, I must say, but Sam got in a bit of trouble. He pulled him out and it just went, phew, and I think it'll take a fair one to pass him in the entry bumper.
Well, that's very interesting. We'll come back after the next break and speak about Cheltenham next week.
The Racing Post Bloodstock Postcast is sponsored by Racing FX, the UK's leading money services provider to the equine industry. Manage all your multi-currency needs in one cash manager account and spend anywhere in the world using the Racing FX multi-currency card sponsored by MasterCard. Payments to all service providers in the industry, at home or abroad, are quick and easy to manage via our unique equine network.
Hi there, we're back with this Racing Post Bloodstock Cheltenham postcast. I'm Martin Stevens, James Thomas from the Racing Post Bloodstock desk, and we're lucky to have here Tom Malone, who's telling us all about his purchases. Your best chance at Cheltenham next week?
It'd have to be probably Native River in the Gold Cup.
Yeah.
He's beaten 3 lengths last year. I know all the stats are against him coming back for the second time, but I honestly don't think that we've seen the true Native River in the Gold Cup last year. It's very hard to say that, finishing 3rd, but he didn't jump and travel like he can.
Yeah.
And if anyone remembers that actual month, Colin had 49 runners and 1 winner.
Yes, he went through a spell, didn't he? Yeah.
But it's a peculiar time, and then the minute he got into April, he won everything.
Yeah.
It was very peculiar, and I don't think we've seen the Native River that can jump, gallop, and I mean jump.
Yeah.
He just never seemed to get any fluency, and maybe he had a long season last year, and maybe it was catching up in a different preparation this year. Was very impressive in the Denman. Maybe he beat an on stair like everyone's saying, but I don't think it would have mattered. They cantered from the bend up the straight. Well, Native River's never going to be at his truest until he's galloping for a circuit, is he?
No.
But actually, to just stride away from him in the end, he's a big exciting horse.
But it was nice to see that, wasn't it? It was a different dimension to his sort of profile, that he could just travel and then quicken away nicely.
People used to read that horse wrong because he just stays. Didn't stay. He won a listed 2-mile hurdle at Exeter one day. He might be a good stayer, but he doesn't lack pace. You don't win over 2 miles in your career if you lack pace.
Yeah.
So he, for me, is a good horse. He just can grind other horses into the ground. And look, if he gets there in one piece, which they're falling by the wayside at the minute each day, but hopefully he gets there in one piece.
How about Black Quarton, who's a horse who's lit up the jump season?
Amazing little horse. We bought him in Autoy one day. He finished second to a Grade 1 horse. He'd won his bumper in the provinces, and we didn't give an awful amount of money for him. He wasn't an expensive horse, and we were kind of half treating him like a good ground, decent summer, nice ground horse. And I think the day I started to prick my ears was the day he won the 3-runner, beating Ballyoptic at Cheltenham on soft ground. It was November time, and I think we've all started to have to, for Paul to turn around and say he reminds him an awful lot of Sylvain Conti, but probably has a little bit more speed.
Yeah.
For him to say that, because you'd have to be so impressed with the way he quickened in Ascot the last day. And he's on a roll. Like, how many horses win eight in a year? Do you know what I mean? He's a phenomenal little horse, and he's only 7.
You don't think he'll be coming to the end of his tether gradually towards the end of the season, or is he just going to keep?
Well, there's nothing suggesting it right now.
No.
You nearly say he's getting better with each run, and he's not the sort of horse that goes home and takes a week to get over his run. He bounces and squeals out of his box. And for Paul to say he's bucking and squealing at home, like everyone was saying, you shouldn't run him at Ascot because you got. he'd kill someone at home if you left him alone.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? He's a horse that, that's the key about being a top class trainer, is he knows what horses thrive on work, thrive on racing, and some that need time.
Yeah. Who else should we be looking out for next week among your purchases?
I think the horse that's so forgotten is Slate House in the Supreme Novice. I think he's a massive each-way player.
Yeah.
It has to be. Like, his first 2 runs this year, he had to make all around Cheltenham his own, beating nice animals. 2 Cheltenham runs, been there, done that. Ran a beautiful race the last day when Collins weren't exactly finishing, and they think maybe he wanted to drop back to 2 miles. That was probably the case. You need to be a stayer in the Supreme Novice. You need to stay. So he's got it all. He travelled up into that race the other day like a good horse, didn't he?
Yeah.
And when they turned for home, he didn't quite find as much. But Collins are flying again, aren't they?
Yeah.
He's in winners left, right, and centre, and I think he's very forgotten horse.
Yeah.
And also, there's a bit of a sort of slightly unusual backstory to how you came to buy him, isn't there? Because
funny. That horse had won his point in Fairy House, and he just strode away from good horses, won 10 lengths. But when he jumped the last, he landed on it and spiked his joint, and he got infected, so he didn't make that sale. So then there was a bit of a tale of getting him back and this, that, and the other. I went to the north of Ireland to see him, and he'd buy presenting. I bought Present View. I just like presenting as a stallion, and I fell in love with the horse. And Alan Potts was going to buy him on the day, and he'd had a bad day and decided he was buying nothing and went home.
This is the festival sale, isn't it?
Yeah, last year's festival sale, and I thought, okay, right, that's put a spanner in the works. And Paul Nichols was there, Jamie Snowden was there, and Colin Tizard were people that I'd buy. And no one, I kept saying, one of you got to buy this horse. I don't care who does it, but I'm buying it. And none of them stepped up to the plate. And I was in the ring, and 260, 270, boom, Tom Malone, I went, okay, right. So I remember signing the docket and turning around. I had the 3 of them behind me. I said, right, boys, which one is bravest? Which one's having them? And to be fair to Joe Tizard, he was standing with a guy called John Romans. And they said, John's told Joe he'd have half of them if they found someone else for the other half, and that's how it happened.
Yeah.
But if this is what's served me well in my job, is that if I believe in him, so should another owner.
Yep.
And I went, 5 minutes. He was sold 5 minutes after knocking the hammer. If I'd have just decided not to buy him, I wouldn't have Slay House running for my team.
Yep.
I wouldn't have a graded horse.
Yeah.
So you've just got to step up to the mark sometimes.
Yeah. We mentioned there Alan and Ann Potts, and obviously it's so sad that they died last year, just as obviously they're at the top of their game as owners.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what's happening with their operation now, their string?
Well, same as anyone else knows, Alan's PA at the time, Judy Cusimano, she's in charge of it all, and I believe there's a trust left in charge of all horses will run till they retire.
Yeah.
So, but they've got 60 or 70 horses, so they're going to be around for a long time to come. And I bought him a cap guard from the Derby sale last year, who's now just been named Size and Potsy.
Yeah, good name. Yeah.
And they think he's very, very good.
Yeah, and he's entered to run quite soon, isn't he?
The weekend on Friday.
Yeah, Friday.
He's entered to run Friday, and the word I'm hearing about him is he's well above average.
He's with Jessica Harrington.
Jessica Harrington. Yeah. So, and she was going to run him at Christmas time in the 4-year-old, and she said she bottled it just to give him a little bit more time. But Puppy Power and a few others he's been doing some special things.
Really?
So he could be one. And if he stays around, he's going to be around. If he stayed sound, he could be around for 5 or 6 years.
Exactly.
So the colours will still be around for a long time to come.
Good. Actually, when you mentioned there Jessica Harrington's horses running over Christmas, there was another one of your big point-to-point purchases who caused a bit of a stir in social media last year was Madison to Monroe, because he's obviously sort of got that wonderful paint-flecked markings.
Dapple grey.
Yeah, he didn't run quite so well over Leopardstown.
No, he didn't.
Christmas,
but Jessica's horses at the time weren't finishing, and she put it down to when she got him home. She said he scoped bad, 4 out of 5 on the scope, which would be very bad, So he travelled. He probably done too much anyway, and then didn't get home. But if you look at it on bare form, the horse that finished 7 lengths in front of him was a horse called the Big Dog. Mm-hmm. He was 8 lengths behind him in the point.
Right, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So definitely not his true colours then.
Couldn't have been.
No.
There's no way. The one thing he'd have done was kept galloping. Well, he didn't do that on the day. So you have to, as disappointing as it is, you have to say, whoa, it's one of them days. Let's go. You've got to wipe it. And the Big Dog has come out and won his race. He's won his bumper. Like, I know Madison de Burley is Madison. Madison to Monroe is so much better than what he's shown, and it's one run. Do you know what I mean? We've just got to give them time. Some horses just aren't ready. Do you know what I mean? But the best ones are.
Yeah.
I mean, sort of looking at Madison to Monroe, they're saying you disappointed first time out.
I should live it because now I'm going to you two boys too now, and the industry itself. These horses are costing a lot of money, right? And when it's flagged up all the time how much it costs, we as an industry, we have a responsibility to make owners enjoy it. If them owners are spending 300 and 400 grand on a horse, and they are disappointing them, they're reminded of it every day, which I think is a disappointing thing. I think it's something we should curb, because to be fair, the analysts underneath when they're running, if it was bought privately, you'd have to say something else.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah, exactly,
it's very easy to say, oh, well, this one costs 300 grand or this one costs 400 grand. Actually, when you don't know that, you've got to say he's by Flemingford, who's had so many grade one horses, and he was very impressive in his point to point, as opposed to an owner knowing, oh my God, if he runs bad today, they're going to be all talking about it, which is a very difficult thing for the industry, for us all, because we're supposed to be promoting people coming into the industry and spending the money to find the best horses. So we all have to work on that one.
I'd like to think no one takes pleasure in pointing out that horses who cost a lot, but
I'm sure they don't. But if a horse is ran 9 times and he costs 400 grand, he's worth 40 pence because he was ordinary. He still doesn't need to be reminded that he was 400 grand. It's just something we all have to accept along the way.
No, that's a fair point.
I suppose the flip side to that would also be, obviously in the headlines a lot for buying expensive ones. Could you give us an example of a horse that you bought for really small money that's gone on to
Irving?
Yeah.
He's won 2 fighting fifths. He's won grade 1. I don't know. I can't remember what we paid for him, but he was very minuscule money. He was 40 or 50 grand, I think. He was small money, and they're great. But in Germany, they'd got to the end of him on the flat. So they didn't see a route with him. Whereas when I seen him in the yard, I thought, oh, you're tailor made for jumping, because there's no jumping in Germany anymore. They were finished with him, so they didn't see the value to me, and that's why he became cheap. But
and also we've been talking a lot about jumps, but you do flat horses as well, and you've bought horses like Casper Netcher and My Dream Boat. Are you still keeping an eye on with the flat horses?
I do, but the problem is it's because it's got so busy over jumps. I was trying to spread myself too thin, and you kind of have to be around a lot of flat people to keep going. And I'm down in the West Country. I've got Paul Nichols, David Pipe and Philip Hobbs all around me. I've got all the jumping, whereas most of the flat is either north of Lambourne or into Newmarket. It's very difficult. I enjoy buying them. I would buy 10 or 15 a year, and I love buying a breeze up horse because it's a horse that could be ready to run in 2 months, and people love instant action, don't they? Do you know what I mean? So, no, I really enjoy it, but it is difficult to be in with the clients, really.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for coming in. We've got to go back to the West Country now, and hopefully we'll have you back again next Cheltenham, and you can talk about all the winners this year. So thanks for...
If we have one, we'll be happy.
Exactly.
The Racing Post Bloodstock Postcast is sponsored by Racing FX, the UK's leading money services provider to the equine industry. Manage all your multi-currency needs in one cash manager account and spend anywhere in the world using the Racing FX multi-currency card, sponsored by MasterCard. Payments to all service providers in the industry, at home or abroad, are quick and easy to manage via our unique equine network.